This week in the news, Arista puts the network in the container, support for Google Cloud, software risk or functionality in your dashboard, securing the CA buys another security company, oversubscribing acronyms, and we put an IoT security company inside your IoT company. The discussion topic today is cloud virtual infrastructure security. Helping me with all of this, I have some special guest hosts, including Don Pizzette, Doug White, and Jason Wood. Stay tuned. Enterprise Security Weekly, episode 36 is coming up next. This is a Security Weekly production. Algorithm's Netmon Freemium delivers real-time network visibility to quickly identify emerging threats in your IT environment. Netmon Freemium is a free commercial-grade network forensics and traffic analytics solution. You can use Netmon Freemium's powerful capabilities to search against all observed network traffic, identify abnormal traffic patterns and application usage, and quickly analyze full packet captures. Take the first step towards real-time network visibility. Visit logarithm.com/freemium to learn more and download it today. This episode of Enterprise Security Weekly is brought to you by IT Pro TV, an easy, entertaining approach to online IT training. Access over 2,000 hours of up-to-date, high-quality video content live and on demand via your PC, mobile device, and more. For a free 7-day trial and 30% off the lifetime of your account, visit itpro.tv/enterprise security and use the code ES30. Are you worried about PCI compliance? Does your development team understand or care about security? Are you ready to face a breach of your customer's sensitive data? See the worst that can happen before it does. Black Hills Information Security can help you help management see the future. Email consulting@blackhillsinfosec.com to find out how a web application penetration test can mitigate the risk before you go live. Welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, reporting on the Enterprise Security News for March 9th, 2017. We're broadcasting live from a windy G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island. To my left, Mr. Doug White from Roger Williams University, the director of the cybersecurity programs there, has joined us today. Doug, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, as ever. I mean, it's always exciting to be here on a non-blizzard kind of day. And
I don't believe we're getting a blizzard tomorrow.
Really, I don't know.
Complete denial.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's nice today with wind, but what are you going to do?
It's very windy. I had to get out the front door of the studio. I literally had to do you're pushing the football thing on the football practice field. I had to do that to the door, and then once the wind caught it, I flew outside the door.
I call that a programmer's workout.
Yes, that is a programmer's workout. On the lines via Skype, Don Pizzette from IT Pro TV. Don, welcome to the show again.
Thanks for having me.
Always nice to have Don on the show. Mr. Jason Wood joins us from Paladin Security. Jason, welcome.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
We're just bringing all the shows together today. Don appears on all of our shows. I think have you been on Startup Security Weekly yet, Don?
I think I'm missing that one and My Secure Digital Life. I'm trying to get the whole collection.
All right. Yeah, we'll get you on both of those so you can make the full rounds. I think you're missing.
No, I'm good.
You're good. You've made the rounds.
I've been on every show that you have.
We could give Doug a special challenge coin or something once you've been on all the shows.
Something.
It'd be awesome. I have announcements. I do. They're coming up on my teleprompter. I'm just filling time until it gets there. We're excited to be attending and covering the 13th Annual Secure World Boston Conference, March 22nd and the 23rd at the Heinz Convention Center in the Back Bay of Boston. Secure World brings together New England cybersecurity community for high-quality training, collaboration, and networking. This year's theme is Surviving the Siege, Medieval Lessons in Modern Security. Don't miss presentations from Larry Wilson, Esmond Kane, Sandy Backick, and many more. Earn up to 12 to 16 CPE credits. Security Weekly listeners also save $100 off their registration for the full conference pass. You can visit secureworldexpo.com for more information. IT Pro TV's courses now include Exchange 2016, Wireshark, ECIH, and ECES. IT Pro is also introducing a new membership level soon. The new standard level is $57 a month or $570 a year. Includes access to the on-demand course library, live chat, and QA forum. The new premium level is $85.70 per month or $857 per year. Includes access to all standard membership features, in addition to unlimited Transcender practice exams, virtual labs, and access to the enterprise portal. Subscribers can download courses with annual, standard, or premium memberships. Don, how did you come up with $85.70? Like, how did the math work out? It was 70 cents.
I wish I could say there was some great economic formula that goes into that, but it was a PR thing. Apparently, people like sevens. And so that's what got the 7 in there. And then there was some kind of percentage increase based on I don't know, the accountants got involved in all that. And that's where those numbers come from.
Awesome. Well, on to the enterprise security news for today. I don't know if you guys have looked into this. I have not other than reading this article and becoming familiar with it enough to bring it to light to our listeners. And I encourage everyone to go read more. Arista puts the networking devices in containers. So things like BGP and all that kind of stuff, they've been virtualizing it for a while, from what I understand. Now, really, it's a virtualized network appliance that runs inside of a container. And I just wanted to reflect with the panel today about how that will change security and networking, and more so the impact of security and networking in this type of environment. No takers. Everyone's like, Paul, you're on crack. I'm not going there. This is all new to us. I was actually talking to one of my friends at a cigar event this past Monday, and he was like, hey, have you looked into that like container stuff? He does like critical infrastructure, IT. He's like, it's starting to come up on my radar. He's like, there's a lot to learn. I'm like, dude, that's like, you basically summarized the challenge and the opportunity for all of us to learn more about this technology.
I think it's nice. Anything that gets containerized is nice in the sense that you take it and you make it a kind of black box that now can
really run anywhere. Is it like Java?
Well, yeah. So it becomes like a Java container.
Except it really does run everywhere.
Well,
maybe not. Okay.
It runs lots of places. So I think it makes it more versatile. It makes it more agile. It means maybe, and I haven't looked at this Arista one, but it means maybe you could bolt other tools onto it easily, so you could actually build on additional security with that container at its core. So to me, that means there's a lot of opportunities for startups, which I know that's not the show, but there's a lot of opportunities for startups to maybe take containers like that, license them, and use that as a baseline for new things. And then in some ways, it does create better security.
Well, and Don's below me, so watch this. Hey, Don, down there, containerization, right? Do you guys have training classes on that kind of stuff?
It's actually being developed right now because it is getting more and more popular. And, there's a lot of risk with containers, not just from security, but from the performance side. Because if you think about it, especially a security appliance like a firewall or a next generation application gateway, something like that, they expect certain hardware to be there. They expect to have TCP offload engines. They expect to have ASICs that are doing encryption and decryption. And in a container, all that has to get done in software because you don't know what hardware is underlying and you can't see it anyway. So a lot more is being done in software than in hardware, which means there's a lot more spots where you can go wrong in the development. And so on the security side, it's tough. I have a hard time buying into that with appliances like Cisco has their VASA and similar to what Arista is doing, where when they deploy it in hardware, they have complete control from the moment the layer 1 connection on the incoming interface all the way to the outgoing interface. They have complete control. When it's in a container, there's a lot under the hood they don't have control over, and so there's that assumption that somebody else is handling that, and I'm sure it's fine, but that's not always the case.
Right.
I mean, that's the trouble with every appliance that ever existed, right? I mean, and I agree with you completely, but I mean, and 100% a piece of hardware is always more secure, but it's never going to be as versatile as having something you can pull out and put in over here that you can access, quite easily from everywhere. But yeah, I mean, if there's holes in it, if it behaves in ways you didn't expect, if there's ways into it that nobody planned for, then I 100% agree that there could certainly be problems with it. But I will say that VMware and Citrix and all these other solutions have certainly improved the ability to interact with these kind of devices far better than they were, say, 10 years ago when you try to interact with it and then you got driver crashes and driver holes and all these problems. Today, when we set up all these VMs, I see it being a pretty smooth interface and being able to interact with it. So from a security perspective, I agree. It's a black box. You don't know what's in there. But, to me, I think some of those issues have been resolved. But, yeah, I agree.
It's a nice segue into our next story as well, which is a very similar topic. Checkpoint has added support for Google Cloud. What I found interesting about this announcement is that Checkpoint now claims to be the industry's broadest cloud platform supporting security measures like advanced threat prevention, right? We'll talk about what that means. So they have security solutions that can operate in public, private, or hybrid clouds, including AWS, Microsoft Azure, VMware, Cisco, OpenStack, Nuage networks. Did I say that right? Nuage, N-U-A-G-E networks. Nuage. Thank you.
A new start.
And now Google's cloud platform. And I thought this was interesting. I had not realized how advanced Checkpoint was in supporting all this. I don't know if their technology works or not, or if our panel has thoughts on security being baked in like this, as we were mentioning in our previous story. You also have to secure your routers now in the cloud as well as all your other infrastructure. Yep. How does security play? And also any insights into how Checkpoint's products work in all of these cloud environments. Jason, we kind of left you out of the previous discussion, so why don't you can go first.
All right. One of the things that kind of caught my attention with this was just and I guess maybe this is because of the presentation I'm working on. We have been moving in IT, right, to the cloud to, we can be agile, we can scale up systems down and back and forth, and as long as nobody makes a mistake on their shell script, everything stays online and we're good. But security products have lagged behind on getting out there, so you really are just dependent on whatever the cloud provider gives you. And so it's interesting to see things like Checkpoint, which has been around for a long time, mature company, now has a product platform that supports this wide range of cloud providers. And so I think it was interesting to me just to see, we're starting to get security starting to get back out there and to get into this environment that before just was for a while it seemed like, oh crud, we're doing what? Where's our apps?
Other thoughts? Sorry.
For me,
I
like to see this because years ago I was taking things like Avaya. When we first started doing virtualization, we were pulling up things like Avaya routers, which were some really early open source kind of appliances back then, and using
Avaya?
those.
No,
is what?
Not Avaya. What's the open source router?
Viata.
Oh, I'm
Viata.
sorry. So
Avaya is really old.
Can we run this back? Yeah, no.
Because you're old.
Viata.
Like,
no,
what?
It's Viata. Viatta. Yeah, I was getting all those A's and V's all mixed up in my head, which sounds
Avaya's still around though, right? They're still.
It is. Yeah, no, Avaya's around and they have an appliance, but Viata has appliances and they were open source, and I was pulling those open source appliances together to use in my virtualized networks. And I thought that was really cool because instead of having to use hardware, I could use these things. So I think Checkpoint's being a little proactive here in that they're going out and they're saying, let's use a really common platform that everybody knows that's used all over the place and make that available for something like AWS. So you can pull this up onto AWS and treat that just like a regular part of your physical segmentation instead of now it's this weird cloud thing out there. I have no idea how it works. So I'm a fan. I mean, I know there's issues with all these appliances, but there's issues with everything. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one of the other challenges with moving to the cloud is that things are just different, right? So if I have a bunch of on-premises servers and data and storage, and I start moving into AWS, for example, now I've got to do IAM and security groups and network ACLs that's different. It's not the way that I'm used to supporting it. That means it's easier to implement it wrong and it's harder to monitor. So if you have an appliance, like a virtual appliance that matches the physical hardware that you're already using, if I've got all Checkpoint firewalls deployed locally, and then I use the Checkpoint virtual appliance in the cloud, it makes it far easier to move up and know that everything's configured right and working right, and it kind of meshes with my hybrid cloud. So it helps us in that respect, and it helps those companies like Checkpoint stay relevant because we're starting to see the on-premises hardware model is really starting to dry up, and these companies, they've got to adapt to the cloud or they go away.
And it's a
does it develop synergies with your private hybrid clouds, Don? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I mean, you're leveraging your existing skill set, right? You gotta have a paradigm shift, and what other buzzwords can we get? Big data.
That's
big
right.
Data.
Big data.
Make sure you have lots of runway in front of you too.
Lots of runway. Lots of runway. I like that one, Jason. That's a good one.
Runway, yeah.
So one of the thoughts I just had too is, I mean, to Don's comment about it being different with all of these other platforms, I was just thinking in terms of if you have an auditor come in and they start asking how do you secure and segregate in your cloud environment, and if I pop up and say, well, we've got this Checkpoint device and here's how we've got it, and manages just like all of our other Checkpoint devices, it's going to be a lot easier to get through that interview or that audit.
I really like
it's
that
something
comment.
they understand.
I really like that comment because I used to do audits, and I will tell you that you get audited just in the context of enterprise. You get audited more effectively in that very model, because that means that, I don't have to bring in 4 auditors because you use this here and this here and this here. I can bring in just that one auditor who's an expert on Checkpoint. They can look at Checkpoint here. They can move up and look at your Checkpoint in the cloud, and you're not trying to reteach them everything they need to know. So I like that. And plus, it helps with just on-site security in the enterprise.
Moving on to our next story, Entrust has announced a new version of its certificate services. One of the features I thought was really interesting is that users of the Entrust Wildcard SSL TLS certificates can now utilize security best practices by applying a unique private key to each server protected by a Wildcard certificate license. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a big deal because. Go ahead.
I just say I thought so too, because I've worked in environments where we're managing wildcard certificates, and you would sit there and think, wow, if anybody gets this private key, we're hosed across the board.
Yeah, I've always said that small businesses love wildcard certificates because they're less expensive than buying a bunch of individual ones and easier to maintain. But you're exactly right that if it gets compromised, you're really screwed. So having separate private keys, that really solves that problem, makes wildcard certificates more acceptable. I haven't looked at their solution yet, so I'm kind of curious to see how they've managed to do that. Multiple private keys tied to the same cert. I've seen that done with other technologies, but not with SSL and TLS certificates. So I'm kind of curious to see how they did that.
There was a bunch of other features in there, too, that you can read in our show notes on our wiki.securityweekly.com. There's Code Sonar released a new dashboard. What I found was interesting is when I was reading about what their dashboard does, they talk about their dashboard and they say, let's see if I can summarize it or read a specific quote, a new key capability to elevate security vulnerabilities and software quality to the executive level. It provides executives with an immediate readout of the level of outstanding security risks in their projects. My question is, how much at an executive level do you care about security risk versus regular risks versus like the actual output or production of your software? And I think that dashboards are great. Now, I know Code Sonar may incorporate some of those other elements as well. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, but honing in on just the security risks, I don't feel like an executive is going to be compelled to spend their time looking at a dashboard that's really just about security risks. If I'm managing a software company, I want to look at a dashboard that tells me, I want to know about security bugs, right? Those are on my radar, so to speak. But I also want to know about all other bug fixes. What's the status? What's the ratio, percentage of fixed versus not fixed? How does that impact the deadline? And then what's the status of features is probably what I'm most concerned about is what's the status of my features. If you can combine that in one dashboard, now you have something that I think is ready for the executive level. Putting just security risks in there, I don't think makes it ready for the executive level. Agree, disagree, thoughts?
A long time ago, there were products like this. They were called executive information systems. This is old. And the reason they came about was a lot of people wanted ways to sort of convince upper management of the value of information systems. And what these systems did was they created these kind of fuzzy, I saw one that was all proprietary at a fairly large enterprise, and they had all these red, green, and yellow lights that were scattered on this giant screen up in this control center. Oh, this was when they had
color monitors and printers you're talking about?
Well, I mean, they actually, it was like pterodactyls holding up little colored flags. Oh,
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So, I got a new job. But the idea of those things, I thought, because I looked at that, I thought, wow, you spent a lot of money on this, and it's very sophisticated, but it really, in the end, it's a green light, a red light, and a yellow light. And a person who was a pretty smart guy said, it's just so that the CEO can walk through every day and see green lights. Mm-hmm. And so I think to some level, dashboarding does that kind of thing. If you've got upper management, you need upper management buy-in, sometimes just giving them those sort of oversimplified views of the world that says big, happy, green, smiley face right on my desktop every morning when I glance at it for that 1/10 of a second before I go back to whatever else I was doing. It's just that one little strobe flash that keeps those people saying, good job, guys, and go on. Or if they come in and they see a big red frowny face and you're going, uh-oh, maybe we better do something. I got to get on the phone. So I wouldn't say I'm like overwhelmingly supportive, but I do see some benefit to being able to do that with security, just like we would do in the mainframe shop with the pterodactyls, and being able to send up that green flag balloon every morning and say, hey, everything's okay, or we've got problems and that's why everything's slow.
I'm envisioning you printing it on a dot matrix printer and then taking a highlighter with a specific color.
A chain printer. Exactly.
Don, Jason, thoughts on executive level dashboards and security information?
I think this one's focused more on budget than security. I mean, from the executive standpoint, right? It says it gives them the data needed to improve decision making concerning security investments. If you go up to your CEO and you say, like, we need this new technology, I need something to implement IPsec tunnels or whatever, and it costs X amount of dollars. They look at that and they don't see it as a way of improving sales or whatever, right? It's minimizing risk, and it's hard to attach a dollar value to that. So here we can say, look, yeah, our IT security budget last year was $1.2 million, and here's why. Look at the amount of risks that we've got this year compared to last year or the year before. It kind of justifies that budget for what's normally a cost center.
The only thought I have on that, though, is if I'm going to the CEO is not going to log in and look at the dashboard. There's going to be a meeting with the CIO or the CSO or whatever, and he's going to say, how's it going? And they're going to say, well, here's what we got, and they're going to display screenshots from the dashboard. So I guess maybe it'd be useful up to a certain point as far as executives, but past somebody in technology, I can't see a CFO or a CEO. Let me log in and check the dashboard today and see how security's doing.
I've seen a few though. I would at least say. And again, it depends on the granularity of it. So if it's just something as simple as right there on the bottom right corner of my screen, I've got a happy face or a frowny face. That might actually be something. That was what they were doing, those EIS systems, was just they didn't understand what was going on. But we had a guy who he wanted to walk through every day, and he wanted to see the manufacturing status. He didn't want any details. He didn't want any information about it. He just wanted to see that there was a green bar there that meant that there was no fault, whatever was going on. And I saw that at an investment firm, too, where they wanted to walk in, and they had tied to all these colored lights just how much in trading they had done, how many trades they had made, and they set these fuzzy values on the back office that said, if we make more than 500 trades a day, this changes to yellow. And that meant maybe something's wrong with the market, and then that person jumped on the horn. So I don't know. It'd be worth a psych study maybe to dive into that and see what's going on.
Transitioning back into cloud access security brokers, or CASBs, Big Glass is one we've covered in the past. They've got some announcements. They're going hard and heavy on the channel partnering with their services, which I think it's a pretty smart move. If you're a CASB, you're going to want to go down that channel partner path. And I think the way they're positioning themselves as they announced a partnership with TrustWave is that it's a mid-market kind of play, right? Mid-market's outsourcing stuff to the cloud. They need security. They also need management. So why not partner with people like TrustWave and Optiv, who are doing the MSSP services for these mid-market companies, and then also give them some insights into the security of their cloud instance. So that was the announcement. There's no questions there. It's more of okay. Moving on. I see that. CA. This is sure to spark some debate. CA. And not like the Canadian version of CA, CAA.
Yeah.
CA picks up
trademarked it.
We did. CA picks up Veracode for $614 million. CA is making a full-on play in security, according to at least my analysis, others as well. They picked up Veracode most recently, but also they picked up Exedium, which is a privileged identity management, Automatic, which is business automation, and Mobile System 7, which is data protection and analytics, specifically for security and threats. So what do you guys think of CA? I mean, we know CA from back in the day, right? It used to be the place where companies went to die, but now we're seeing what I think are really cool security. Automatic is, I think, there's a security play in Automatic. I think they're making some smart moves. Yeah. Certainly spending a ton of money. If you look up on Crunchbase, you can find out what some of these figures are. Hundreds of millions of dollars on each company. Now, some are undisclosed, but they're spending a ton of money on security. When I say ton, I mean like over $1 billion easily on security companies recently. What are you guys' thoughts on CA? If I put my Canadian hat on.
Well, they've made the pivot kind of like IBM did to become more of a total solution. I'm going to throw out that holistic buzzword, right? We got to have that one.
Yes.
That it's, I never sit down and say, I'm going to buy a product. Let me go see what CA sells. It's more of I've got a problem. Let's go see if I can get the CA consultants to come in and help me solve it. And they've got a whole suite of products they put together to create this total solution. Just like IBM and several other organizations have kind of done. So that's what we're seeing here. And it makes sense for them to acquire stuff in the security area because that it's such a hot news item. Every time a company gets compromised, nobody wants to be that company. Let's get these guys to help. Right.
Yeah, Veracode's a great company too. We know several people there. Of course, anytime there's any kind of acquisition, it's like, well, we bought Veracode. They're the market leader in web application security. Well, of course you are, because you just bought them in your PR agency wrote the press release. So.
And that would go to my comment about it, which is that I like the idea that we consolidate. I mean, that's just a natural instinct that the IBMs or whatever. The danger is that you take a good company, Veracode.
Yes.
You buy it, you mismanage it, and it becomes a not-so-great company.
I think Cisco could probably tell you about that.
Yeah, exactly. And so if CA is buying up great companies, as long as they let them continue to be great companies and they manage them and they develop them and they put all that out there, then that's a good move. If they buy them up and they let them wither, they let them get ruined by poor management at the upper levels, then it may not be a great move for CA in the long run if these companies end up being industry trailers rather than industry leaders that they are when you buy them. And you've seen that with IBM and everybody else. So,
yeah, that was my thought when I saw this was, one, go guys at Veracode. That's pretty dang cool.
Yes.
Happy to see them be successful like that. But, are they going to let these companies do what they do? Or are they going to, put them into their rigid framework of how things get done, slow everything down to a massively glacial pace, and cause them, just basically run them into the ground? And that's always what I worry about, or a concern, I guess. I worry maybe is a little strong when you get, some of these great fast-moving shops picked up by very companies with a long history in the industry, and as a result, and they're very large, and as a result of that, they pull their acquisitions down to that culture and that pace. So hopefully that doesn't occur here. I'd really like to see them keep going.
It kind of ties into our next story as well. In the article that in the CA press release, they talk about how it's very much a DevOps play, how they want to combine Veracode's ability to help web developers make more secure code with privileged identity management and blending that together. Okta got a similar play going on. They bought Stormpath, who provides services to maintain authorization for developers via an API. It's kind of interesting that we had two stories this week that are talking about a very specific niche of that privileged identity management in managing developers' access to the code and APIs access to various things. which was this a gap before, or was this? It's not an area that I'm too familiar with. But we had 2 stories this week. They kind of touched on that.
I mean, all that code development gap has always come round and round from time to time down through history. I mean, you've always seen this dev prod problem, which is what I call. It's what they called it in the old days with the pterodactyls. But I mean, as that expands into the cloud, and you got developers scattered. You got developers in Florida, you got developers in Vietnam, you got developers in India. All of a sudden, you got a huge trust problem with, I got my guys in Florida. I know them. I see them every day. I've known them all along. We just expanded and we added a coding shop in Vietnam. Maybe they're great. Maybe they're not, but we don't know. Maybe they changed and they're not even telling us because they said, oh, this person came to work today and they're not the person they were yesterday, but we're not going to tell anybody because we could get in trouble.
Been there.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you've got a trust gap, you've got a development gap, and you've got developers who could be pushing malicious code or poor code out into your prod products without you being able to manage that, and you don't have access to them physically. So I think that's why this niche is coming up big, because it's worse than ever with the cloud.
Yeah, and this might be shocking, but developers aren't always the greatest with implementing secure practices. And so you probably remember last year where GitHub, they found where a number of developers had accidentally put their Amazon master API access keys, their AWS keys, into their code repositories. The code repositories became public, and then people could just scrape through the repositories and find these keys to then go and start spinning up instances and other things in their AWS accounts. And so being able to ensure that we're doing a separate API key for each application, doing proper IAM and all that's a challenge to get a developer to do it. So these companies are stepping in with solutions to basically force the developers to follow secure practices.
That's awesome. ETAS, I guess. So, and this other company, TrustPoint, right? So ETAS provides innovative solutions, engineering services, consulting, training, and support for the development of embedded systems for the automotive industry and other sectors of the embedded industry. They're essentially an IoT, what we would call now an IoT company. Interesting, they still use embedded systems in their literature. They bought TrustPoint, and TrustPoint develops innovative products and other solutions to address the security needs for IoT and machine-to-machine communication markets, including vehicle, smart cities, and critical infrastructure applications. So here, this is great news, in my opinion. You've got an IoT or embedded systems company that's buying an IoT security company. If there ever was a better marriage of us having some hope of driving a car someday that's actually secure, it's stuff like this, right?
I completely agree, and I think this is another niche endeavor that is needed. I think these guys may be one of those great timing maneuvers that you got lucky as hell because you just happened to get into this at the right moment. Because based on WikiLeaks yesterday, I guarantee you the consumer help desks at all these big companies are ringing off the wall. Because I was getting emails by, 10 a.m. yesterday from people saying, Doug, tell me, is my TV going to be watching me? And I'm like, what are you doing? And I said, and I know this one guy called me.
What are you doing in front of your TV?
Well, this guy called me and said, is my TV watching me? And I said, what are you doing? Oh, hang on, let me just check here.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you should put on some clothes,
Put some pants on, man.
But I think because of stuff like that, and as that stuff gets more prevalent, if you were lucky enough to be set up right now so that Toyota or Chevrolet or whoever it is could use your products and say, we're certified. We have TrustPoint certification for all our vehicle IoT stuff. Wow, that's a marketing coup. Whether it works or not doesn't matter. It's the ability to go out there and say you're doing it and get ahead of the curve that's going to make all the difference until you get taken out. But if you can actually make it work, I think it's a great thing to see happening.
One of the thoughts I had on this is you see different cultures of developers, they work in different industries, working on different types of products and stuff like that. And you watch where these different groups become aware of security as issues hit them. And when I saw this, I'm particularly like the cars, when they started developing some of these features and the whole bit, nobody was thinking about the idea of hacking a car. What security issues would there be for something like this? And then you have, Charlie Miller and crew showing, well, there are some potential issues. So but the guys who are working in that field, they don't know a lot about this stuff, I would expect. And so great, we're starting to get them some tools to help them through some of that process. Whereas in web application development, we got to experience a ton of problems before we started really getting tools to help us out with that. Very, very much with some high profile as information's being sucked out of applications and whatnot. Now instead, hopefully, this new industry or industries will start getting some benefit from that without having to go through all of the pain.
I also think in terms of IoT industries that motor vehicle manufacturers, if they haven't already, and there's already been a lot of inklings of that, they're already a very well-regulated industry. Those regulations, I think, already have started to mandate some security controls. I think that's going to continue. And I think that if you're a vendor supplying these embedded systems to the motor vehicle industry, that you're going to want to make sure that your stuff is secure. So I think this is a looking ahead by ETOS, saying, you know what, we're going to have to do this. If we do this now, we could very well be a market leader because people are going to start looking for these more secure solutions. So I think it's a great move on their part.
I completely agree.
All right. With that, we're going to take a short break, come back, and talk even more. We already talked about it a little bit, but talk even more about cloud virtualization, infrastructure security. So stay tuned.